Good morning. Good to see all your faces here. Good morning to those of you joining us online. Yeah. So first of all, I want to acknowledge that we have not done a very good job of recognizing and acknowledging that this month of February, in addition to it being the month of love, we celebrate it as the month of love, it's also Black History Month. And I, in particular, have not spent enough time focusing on that, putting our focus on it. So I apologize. I promise to do better next year. And if anybody would like to work with me on that, and help create something special next year, you're welcome, more than welcome. I just wanted to get that out of the way. All right, so this month of love that we have been focusing on is not complete without a discussion of forgiveness. Right? This topic of forgiveness, because unforgiveness is the largest, the biggest impediment to our experience of love. It's just this, the years that I've been ministering and coaching and doing workshops and working myself on these powerful New Thought principles, the thing I've noticed the most is that the thing that blocks the love, that blocks the experience of abundance in our life more than anything else, is holding on to resentment, is a lack of forgiveness. So we're going to talk about that today, and we're going to discover this thing, this givingness, the give in forgiveness. Okay? So, learning to forgive is not something that we do because we want to show other people or we want to show God what good people of faith we are. Oh, look at me, I'm a good person of faith. No. It's something we do because our personal freedom depends on it. Really, our personal freedom depends on this. Because the truth is, our resentments don't affect the other person. It's not about the other person, right? It's about us. As the saying goes, clinging to resentment is like drinking poison and waiting for the other person to die. And it is toxic. It's truly toxic. It's a poison. And Lord knows we have enough environmental toxins. We don't need any internal ones. And it really is a bitter pill. There have been studies done that have proved the link between unforgiveness and disease. John Hopkins did a study. Karen Schwartz, the director of mood disorders at John Hopkins, says, quote, "There's an enormous physical burden to being hurt and disappointed. Chronic anger puts you in a fight or flight mode, which results in numerous changes in heart rate, blood pressure, and immune response. Those changes then increase the risk of depression, heart disease, and diabetes, among other conditions. Forgiveness, however, calms stress levels, leads to improved health." End quote. It's science, So when we learn and practice the art of forgiveness, and it's an art, it is an art, we are freed of the heavy burden of resentment. And then that divine life energy can flow once again into our bodies and flow more abundantly into our lives. That's what we want, right? And so, I think we probably all understand this on some level, and maybe many of us have done, have done forgiveness, have maybe tried, maybe there's like one situation or one person that's really difficult to forgive, right? And maybe we've done a lot of work on that, and if we haven't been totally successful, it could simply be because we don't understand fully what forgiveness truly is. There's a lot of misunderstanding about forgiveness. It really is very much misunderstood. So I thought today we'd clear it up, and we'd really look at it. And I think the first place to start is to talk about what forgiveness is not. What forgiveness is not. Okay, so first of all, it's not condoning bad behavior. You're not condoning bad behavior, hurtful behavior, when you forgive. Secondly, it's not an invitation to be hurt again. In other words, you don't need to stay with that person. You can completely heal and forgive that person and not be friends with them anymore. You don't even have to invite them to dinner. Forgiveness is very often done at a distance, and that's fine. Right? That's fine. Third, forgiveness doesn't require the other person to apologize. And this is something that I see. It's like, well, I'm ready to forgive when you apologize. No. It's also not this, invitation to call them up on the phone and say, I want you to know I'm forgiving you. Right? You've seen that. You've heard that, right? Yeah. It's not about the other person, right? It's about us. The whole thing is for us. So it's also, forgiveness is not an excuse to exercise spiritual bypass. So let me share what that is, really. So you don't want to go directly from the pain of the experience directly to forgiveness. There's a few steps along the way that it's probably really good to move through. Recognizing our feelings, feeling our feelings, processing it, working through stuff. Right? Working through it all. This is a process. So in the workshops that I do, I have an exercise where I invite people to, speaking of a letter, it's a little different letter, to write a letter saying everything, expressing everything that that person has done and all the ways that you're hurt or disappointed or, feeling bad and all of the different areas of your life that have been affected because of it. And just like no holds barred, just get it out, write it down, and then we're not going to send the letter, right? We burn the letter. And in the classes, it's a ritual where we all do the burning of these letters together. It's a little like the burning bowl ceremony, where just all this offers it up in smoke. It's very healing. And finally, forgiveness is not a way to absolve yourself of responsibility. Searching our hearts for where we consciously or unconsciously participated in creating this hurtful experience can not only help us grow as people, we become more, we understand ourselves more, but also in the future, it can help us to create healthier relationships in the future. All right, so what forgiveness is, then, we know what it's not, what it is. It's a recognition that the offender has forgotten who they are. And they're probably operating out of some unconscious patterns. Right? Secondly, it's a recognition that it probably was not personal. Not always. Sometimes it is, honestly. But most of the time, it's not personal. That person doesn't even realize that what they did hurt you. Very often. And third, forgiveness reaffirms our oneness with the whole divinely human race. That's on a journey. We're all on a journey here. We're all making mistakes. We're all making mistakes as we journey through this, upside down world, this world of duality, the world of separation. We're all making mistakes. So Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. once said, "We must develop and maintain the capacity to forgive. He who is devoid of the power to forgive is devoid of the power to love. There is some good in the worst of us and some evil in the best of us. When we discover this, we are less prone to hate our enemies." And this is not something he just said, right? This is something he lived. This is something he lived. How else could he look in the face of an angry, hateful white supremacist and stay committed to love, stay committed to nonviolent protest? He lived this. He lived it. And, here's the thing. Forgiveness is not always easy. Nobody said it would be easy. It's a process. Definitely a process. And, particularly the big offenders. If we're tasked with forgiving somebody who has maybe taken the life of a loved one, if that's the task in front of us, or forgiving someone who has done some horrendous thing, like a hate crime or a school shooting or something, that's a very challenging journey. A challenging journey that it's good to have support and give yourself time and work through. I think about, remember that historic church in Charleston, historic AME church, that I've been there, I've seen it. And the white supremacist kid basically comes in and he's with them in the Bible study, and then he takes out his gun and shoots them all. And I remember seeing on television, like maybe a week later, maybe less than a week later, people from that community, relatives, were saying things like, well, I forgive them. It's my Christian duty to forgive them. And I'm thinking to myself, I hope you've given yourself some time to process this and to work through it, because, what this means for you and your community, and, that takes some time and effort, and I'm really praying that, they've been able to do that and to get some support and some help in working through that, because it is, it is this journey, this process. Never just a one and done kind of thing. Now, fortunately, we don't have the same kind of, most of us. Now, I know some of you have had some pretty traumatic childhoods, saying. And for most of us, though, just the challenge comes in forgiving the actions or the inactions of a spouse, an an employer, a relative, a neighbor, co-worker or something. That's where our challenge is most of the time. And so we can look at this challenge. We can start. Here's the place where we can start. We can start by thinking about it in terms of there are three aspects to this event, to this painful event. Number one is the thing that this person did, either consciously or unconsciously, that caused the harm. And then two, over here, is your experience of pain or frustration or anger or whatever it is, right? But in between these two things, there's a lot of space. And in this space is our perception, our interpretation of what happened, our interpretation of that person. And this is where we want to focus, because this is where we have control. It's the only place we have control. It's the only place we have power. So we want to focus on that and think about maybe shifting our perception. Think about maybe seeing it from a higher perspective. This could be the key that unlocks the prison of unforgiveness. This could be it. So this is where we want to pay attention. So, have you ever had a pet that, maybe a dog, who chewed up your favorite pair of shoes? Or a cat that scratched the heck out of your favorite chair? Or a pet that maybe likes to throw up or maybe make a mistake on your most expensive rug? It's never ceases to amaze me how our dog Luna, of all the places she could go, most of it's wood floors or tile, much easier to clean up there, right? It's like a beacon in the night. She goes directly to that rug to throw up, or if she's sick, to, poop. She's like, and it makes you mad, right? You get mad, and maybe you yell. But I know that none of us would fail to be able to forgive our pet, because it's a dog. Dogs don't know any better. They can be trained better, but they really don't know any better. Cats don't know any better. They don't know it's not a scratching post. They don't know better. So here's the thing. It's not only animals that don't know better all the time. It's us humans too. Yes, we have a superior intellect. We might know better intellectually, but it's not often our intellect that's driving our behavior. What's driving our behavior?
Feelings.
Yeah.
The amygdala.
Feelings, emotions, those darn unhealed places, those unconscious patterns, or maybe unhealed shadow self, or whatever, is mostly driving our behavior. Right? That and this idea of what we think, our interpretations, how we think something should be, how we think people should behave, how we think life should be. I've talked about here before about how we're all operating with a lot of shoulds. That's our interpretations of life. These people should be doing this. This person should be doing that. He should know what I want. The government should be doing this. The government should not be doing that. Life should be more like this. Right? A lot of shoulds operating, a lot of shoulds. And when someone or life inevitably doesn't, live up to our idea of what we think should be, we get mad and we blame. And all the while, it's the interpretation. It is our shoulds, our perception, that's really mostly creating our experience of frustration and disappointment and anger. It's mostly that, our perception. And if someone acts out of their unconscious self, their unconscious patterns. These unconscious patterns, like what are they? It's stuff that we're not really aware that's going on within us. And I have to say, one of the things that can really help us become more conscious of what's running us, of what's going on in us, of our perception, is the practice of meditation. And however that looks, whether it's sitting down, full-on meditation, or it's walking in our sacred spaces and doing meditative work out there, just being quiet and self-reflective and turning within and asking questions and being open to our inner guidance. And I've talked about shadow selves before. This is the part of us that we can't acknowledge is part of us. We can't accept it, so we push it away, and it doesn't go away. It just goes underground where it just becomes more toxic. So there's exercises that we can do. Maybe I'll do a workshop on that. It's in my book. Just really, and I know, Pat Webster, you do a lot of shadow self-work. Yeah. So those are the things that can be operating in us that we're unconscious of. And creating, well, I don't know, what happened? Why is that person not responding to me? Why is that person angry? Why, it's like, oh, maybe it's something that I was not conscious of. And as we become conscious, suddenly we can create better relationships. So if someone is acting unconsciously and does something that hurts us, right? This is they basically are unaware. They basically don't know any better, right? They don't know any better yet. As I always say, you've heard me say, if you've been here a long time, you've heard me say that the key to being able to forgive anyone is to realize that they have done the best they could with the consciousness they had at the time. We all do the best we can with the consciousness we have at the time. We can't do anything different, right? So this space is an opportunity for us to shift our perception, to shift our understanding, to look at interpretations, to maybe see it from a higher perspective, to see them from a higher perspective. And that's the give part of forgiveness. That's the giving part of forgiveness. Charles Fillmore wrote, "Thus in spiritual understanding, the I am of man forgives or gives truth for error. The mind is set in order and the body healed." Gives truth for error. We're all divinely human beings on this journey, stumbling around as we grow in consciousness. We're all doing that. So remembering that when we're tasked with forgiving and looking at that space between the two things, the what somebody has done and how we're experiencing it, looking at that space, our perception, can I see this a little different? Is that person acting out of their unconscious patterns or an unhealed shadow self? Am I reacting because I have a whole set of should-bes? This person should be doing this. It should be different. It should be more like this. And that's the opportunity here. That's the opportunity for growth. And that's the opportunity to give. It's this give. And give in also in another sense of the word, give is that flexible kind of energy that when something has give in it, there's some bend rather than flexible. Like, if I pull it apart, it'll break because it's brittle, it's flexible. But it's having give in it. That's another sense of the word. So giving, and it's a gift for them. It's a gift for us. And the more and more of us who can look at it differently and begin to forgive and practice, it's a practice to practice forgiveness, the more the energy of love can radiate, right? And it doesn't get stuck. Oh, I love these people. I love this. I love you all. But there's that person over there that it's a glitch. It sticks, right? Practicing forgiveness for all of those glitchy parts, those things that get stuck, really can be a gift to us because, again, it frees us, right? It frees us from the burden. It frees us from the toxic energy. And it's a gift to the world because that's when more and more of us can become conscious and to experience their spiritual self and to experience love, being loved, and being a presence of love. Namaste.
Namaste.